All right, and we are back. We got episode 24 in 2024, Chitown Lowdown. We're getting into what's gone on in terms of the offseason, moves being made for Ryan Poles, and what we have in store for the upcoming season in terms of strength of schedule. I think what we were going to leave it off with. But yeah, we can hop in. Who wants to take it away?
Well, I can kick us off with just a very brief overview before addressing the elephant in the room, Justin Fields, and that situation that happened a few days ago. And just kind of run through some moves the Bears have made thus far, free agency, trades. Like you said, Justin Fields, Pittsburgh, 6th-round pick, could be a 4th based on playing time. Kevin Byard, safety from Philadelphia, previously in Tennessee, now Bear. Jonathan Owens, husband of Simone Biles, coming over from Green Bay. He had been Houston before that. Gerald Everett, perennial member of my fantasy team, never starts, just sits on just backup tight end in case something happens.
We're going to use him.
Good to put some points on that bench.
Good to see him. DeAndre Swift coming over from the Eagles, and then Keenan Allen as well, coming from Los Angeles, along with Gerald Everett. We acquired him for a 4th-round pick. He is slotted to make, I think, $18.5 million in the final year of his contract, which, as Jesse had informed us prior to the podcast starting, the Bears are going to assume that final year for the Chargers. And also some smaller names on both the offensive defensive lines to bring in some depth there, which I like to see as well. Probably not any starters in terms of those signings, but some good depth in my opinion. So yeah. Who wants to talk about their feeling as it relates to Justin Fields? Anybody want to start? Or start with any of the other free agency stuff?
I want Tom to take us off here.
Oh, yeah. I'll take us off, baby. I feel like the Bears have done a lot more than they had been doing previously in previous years, unless I'm just paying attention more. I'm not sure. A lot of little signings where we need wide receiver, offensive line, corners, I like that. No really big signings. Keenan Allen and DeAndre Swift were probably the biggest, I'm guessing. I like what we're doing. We're just padding our defense and getting some wide receiver depth or a veteran wide receiver in there, and Keenan Allen. I think that's probably the best move of the Bears have made. I'm excited.
So I feel for Fields, how do you think it is for him to just watch us just build a super team and basically give the number 1 pick, presumably Caleb Williams, one of the best scenarios to start off with as a rookie in the NFL, and then Justin Fields is just like watching this all happen. I mean,
as a backup,
I don't love the guy. I know I kind of defended him in the past and everything like that, and he's a great quarterback. I think just. Is this his peak value? I mean, everybody's kind of sad with what we got for him. But I think a lot of cases have been made that just not a lot of people were interested in Lamar recently, and he is the running quarterback, and just there just might not be the market that was previously discussed back in like January time when we thought, a 2nd-round pick or something like that, I think was talked about. And I mean, what do you think about that specifically, Tom?
Well, I was kind of for Justin Fields in the beginning, but I'm glad we're getting rid of him before the season starts, taking away the distractions. Just we're going to take a quarterback no matter what. Now it's, clear cut. In terms of like his feelings, it's a business, and we're getting rid of him, and he's going to be a backup, and he probably deserved. I thought we could get more out of him. It's just unfortunate that we get a 6th-round pick for what we got for him,
or potentially 4th. potentially a fourth.
Yeah. So, we're moving forward now. I'm just glad that all that business is done, to be honest.
Agreed. Yeah, that's kind of my feeling. I feel bad for Justin Fields, the individual, but I mean, bad things happen to people that work at, Kroger. So that's a business. You got to get business done.
Yeah.
Sorry, man. Sucks.
Hurt their back and shit, dude.
Jesse,
what do you got?
Give us,
look at you.
Yeah, give us your thoughts here before I go off the fucking deep end with this one.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I appreciate everything. Justin kind of sticking with Chicago and doing his best, not as a super outgoing media guy, probably in a very frustrating situation for him with the changes in the front office at the coaching level that he experienced in his 3 years in Chicago. I don't think Chicago did right by him. When you see the moves that they've made this offseason, Tom's right, and Wargo, I think you had mentioned, they're kind of building this dream team on the offensive side of the ball and making some big splash acquisitions that, Justin probably would have had his best year yet in Chicago if he were still going to be Chicago quarterback. Having said that, I think that there was some consistency issues with his play that the time had run out for him in the city of Chicago. I hope and wish him all the best in Pittsburgh. I hope he does really well. I think he has the potential to do that. I think a coach like Tomlin can kind of get him more disciplined, and he could be a great player because we all can see the athleticism, but the consistency was the issue. So, for me, I think there's more value I think he's worth more than what we got for him. Just the timing of everything was not good for us, and how it played out this offseason, especially with all the other quarterback signings. And then at the end of day 2 or 3 of the free agency window, Fields was still there, right? And all the open quarterback spots had been filled by other veterans, more consistent, probably you could argue pretty easily. So, I wish him all the best. I thank him for his time in Chicago, but I'm super excited for Caleb Williams and what this offense is going to look like next year, because I think they went out and they made the moves that they needed to make to reestablish an identity on offense, which they've got huge playmakers on the outside with DJ Moore. They've got a dynamic running back with DeAndre Swift. The offensive line, they're continuing to build up. And, if Caleb comes in and he is this generational type talent, I think the defense is still going to be strong. So these two units playing together are going to be exciting to watch next year. But, as far as the Justin Fields things go, I just wish him all the best, and I'm, feel for him a little bit, but he also said some stupid stuff on the St. Brown podcast, so I can't really let that go.
I just feel like it's the case that everybody knew what we were going to do before we did it, and we were going to do it. It's like when someone's, I bet you don't know what I'm thinking about right now, and it's like they just nail you. And it's like,
I feel like in free agency,
everybody knew what the position that Poles had been put in. Just getting the first round pick, the first overall pick. It's huge fanfare. It's a big ordeal, and everybody knew that it's you can't in this instance, in this circumstance. It'd be really, really, really difficult for a GM in Poles' position to pass on taking Caleb number 1 overall. So just with that being the case, I think everybody knew that we probably wanted Justin Fields to not be in that locker room, same as Caleb, because everybody saw at the end of the year, all the teammates and everything defending Justin. We want Justin. So just having that relationship in the locker room the same time that your number 1 overall pick is coming in and trying to, integrate himself into an offense. I don't know. And now he has to go play behind Russ. Like, shit, man. Sorry.
That's still up for debate.
That's good
True.
for him.
They could bring the best out of each other. I could see them. You know, if they're actually competing for that starting spot.
They called his Russell is the starting QB right now.
Yeah, it's
right now. But we're 6 months from the first game.
I mean, they're not going to bring Russell in and not play him.
Why not? They're only paying him minimum.
You could say the same thing about Fields.
There's no obligation to play Russell like there was in Denver because Denver's still fronting that contract. That's why
how much
the Steelers took him
Russell
because
for?
they don't have to pay him.
League minimum.
They're paying him like $1.5 million.
Yeah. So a couple things regarding the Fields. I agree with all of you guys. I think that we're, for the most part, we all feel that Justin isn't a guy that's leaving Chicago and it's like, thank God he's gone. You know, like there was a lot of mixed emotions with him. And so yeah, if you guys, you know, like it is kind of tough to see him go because he came into a very disorganized situation with this franchise and the Chicago Bears. And you know, we did not do best by him for the first, 3-4 years of his career. Like we just
weren't
set him
able
up
to
for failure. And I say it's my fault. I'm sorry. It is not my fault. It is the organization's fault. This is one of those situations where saying we is kind of not such a good idea. But yeah, it sucks that he had to come into such a train wreck and just was not given the proper tools to succeed. With that being said, I do think that the lack of perceived value as it relates to what the Bears got back for him is a good illustration of doing best by him. Could we have held on to him longer and put him in a situation where we say we're still going to draft Williams, which was if you paid attention to like the mainstream media in the last week and a half, that was becoming a talked about theme was Bears are going to keep Fields, they're going to draft Williams, and they're going to get out. And
that was after the day 2 of free agency and everybody was gone that narrative started to take place. I feel like the conversation wasn't being had that much.
Absolutely. So yes, there was talk early on prior to free agency beginning about us getting, we had talked about, I think during our last podcast, however long ago it was, that there was talk of Atlanta at 8 possibly trading that pick for Fields, which looking back at it now, I think we had all said at the time, like, that seems crazy. Like, why would anyone value him at 8th overall pick at this point? Now, do I think that we could have gotten more for him, say, if we held on to him and then, an Aaron Rodgers situation happens in the first week and a team is without a quarterback, his value instantly skyrockets and it's better for the Bears. But I think I can't remember who had brought it up, maybe Tom or Borgo. I think one thing that you want to keep in mind is sort of this long game with polls as a GM and being perceived as by free agents as a GM who kind of takes care of guys. And I think that could play into this in the long run is, like, hey, yeah, we could have, said, sorry, you're not going anywhere. You're going to stay here and we're going to trade you when we can get the most for you. They didn't do that. They said, no, we truly value what Justin has brought to this team and we want to do best by him. So we're going to trade him to the opposite of the Bears, literally the most stable franchise maybe in the history of the league with the Steelers, and a coach that never has a losing record. And I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Russ is going to be the starter. I wrote down a couple things that, obviously we talked about 51% of snaps going to Fields turns this trade or this pick into a 4th rounder. Like I said, the Steelers don't have any serious obligation to just say Russ is the quarterback or Russ is the starter and we're going to consider Fields. Even if they do, I could definitely see them getting to a point in the season where they're like, you know what, let's try Fields the quarterback. George Pickens, this was something that I heard on Pardon My Take, so I can't take credit for it, but it was a great point. George Pickens is going to hate Russell Wilson. Those two are not going to get along. George Pickens seems like the most dysfunctional human being, maybe apart from Tyreek Hill. You'd have to ask Tyreek Hill's wife. She probably doesn't agree with this, but George Pickens he's one of those like diva wide receivers, the stereotypical. He needs the ball. Russ is like he's on his own planet, planet Russ. So I could see Fields being the prototypical Steeler. Like he's no nonsense. He's there to play. I could see him being Tomlin's guy. And you brought up a great point. Like, I think it was you. I think Tomlin would be a very positive influence on Fields in terms of getting some real like stability and like, consistency in his game. Maybe it was Jesse that said that. But yeah, no, that's a good point. But I'm happy that it appears we've made a decision on what we're doing prior to the draft. Caleb Williams is the assumed number one pick. Transitioning into the next part of this discussion, is there any part of you guys that sees polls completely zagging here and not taking Williams at 1 and trading possibly back to 2 or 3 with Washington or New England? Because we've already seen Jayden Daniels' draft stock increase. He now seems like he's probably the presumed number 2, whereas 3 months ago it was Drake May. And is there any part of you guys that sees like Ryan Poles being like, surprise, I'm not a Caleb Williams guy. I don't like this fucking shithead. He seems like he's going to be a problem. I'm going to take one of these other 2, and we trade back. We increase the number of picks we have in the top 100, because right now, as it sits currently, I think we're 1-9, and then let's say 75 and 122 or something like that. Because of the moves we've made, we've lost a few picks. Do you guys see any scenario where that plays out like that, or is it's Williams to you, no matter what?
I do want to make a point that what you said earlier, Luke, about doing right polls. I think good GMs do that, and they show guys that they will treat them right, and that goes a long way.
Yeah,
you don't see that.
You saw it a bit with the Jalen Johnson negotiation too. Like they were both pretty open as to say like we are having these discussions, and like obviously they're not going to have those discussions in front of the media, but it seemed like there was communication and a deal did get done. It wasn't like, oh, we're going back and forth and nothing comes of it. Like
you don't want to be a dick of a person, ever. And it translates to higher ups too. And they, I think he's doing that. I think he did right, even though he's getting some pushback on it. I think.
I think he views that there's a high likelihood that he plays over 51% of those snaps. I think that is like.
Maybe.
I think there's the other side of the coin here, where if they were going to keep Justin until the first few weeks of the season, see another franchise quarterback go down, try to trade him, you got to keep Justin in the organization and bought in and not create a problem in the locker room, which I think would have been a big problem for Justin. I think he was checked out.
2 20-some-year-olds getting in there?
Well, so I saw a headline that when Chicago signed DeAndre Swift, Justin Fields hadn't reached out to him, hadn't said welcome to Chicago, hadn't said anything like that.
Sorry.
So, if you're still the best quarterback on the roster, you're not assuming anything. If you're a good locker room guy, a good teammate, and you're like, I'm still the best quarterback in Chicago, you're reaching out to those new weapons and you're building that relationship day one. He wasn't doing that as far as I know. And so that's another thing that Poles has to look at and say, this guy, he doesn't want to be in Chicago at this point. He's fed up with whatever it may be, the situation he's been put in, the media, everything, rather than keep him in here and let this continue to be a headline and a distraction for the rest of the team. We got to move on from him, even if we can only get a 6th round pick.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge
I agree with that.
Because,
but to your point, Luke, zigzagging, we better not, right, at this point. I mean, what?
Or else.
I've just been drugged.
Tom's going to be knocking on the doors of Hallis Hall.
Well, what do you guys think we could get trading or down or whatever? Like what? Everybody's saying that it's like historic.
Let's look at last year, for example.
We're asking for. We're asking for historic.
We moved. What pick did we have that we swapped with Carolina, and we also got everything else?
5th? I don't remember what we had.
They didn't. Carolina did not move up very far.
Yeah.
Because we got Darnell Wright with our first pick. I think it was it's top 10, but we also got the 1st round pick this year from them. We got DJ Moore. We got other picks.
What a terrible trade by Panthers.
I think the perceived value to move up 1 or 2 spots for Washington or New England, we could potentially get their 2nd round pick this year, their 1st round pick, obviously, probably their 1st round pick next year.
But we need a quarterback.
We need a quarterback, but you'd still be able to get Jayden Daniels. In theory, is what Luke is saying.
Who's going number 2?
Fromm last year.
What's that?
Washington took Jake Fromm last year. They've got Marcus Mariota and Jake Fromm. Like, do they want to draft another young quarterback and just deal Fromm for nothing, essentially?
Yes, absolutely. They
traded Fromm. They don't care. They don't care about
Georgia's quarterback, Fromm.
Oh, yeah.
National champions. Those guys.
Okay, his team was just great.
There's no scenario where Washington does not draft a quarterback this year.
Right.
I mean, being that they have Jake Fromm and Marcus Mariota, agreed. But
same with the Patriots.
I think that obviously
brisket recently.
I don't know what we're all crazy because we traded our pick last year to Carolina. Carolina drafted Bryce Young number 1 overall. We had the 1st overall pick last year. We traded back to, I think it was 9 to get Darnell Wright. Obviously that was a big haul. I think depending on who the suitor is, like if it's New England or Washington, I think what Jesse had just mentioned is ballpark what you're looking at. You're swapping 1st rounds this year. We're probably getting their 2nd round, maybe a late round this year, and then a 1st round next year as well. Or that maybe there's some sort of player thrown into these trades as well. If it's someone moving up from even further back, it's probably just unrealistic to even think what Ryan Poles would ask for in that situation. I'm constantly just like, if anyone knows me, I like to just go through draft scenarios in my head with everything. I like fantasy drafts. I like drafting a team on Madden. I like going through the draft simulators before the actual draft. Like I would just sit and do it for hours on end and look at all the different things.
So they give it to us. What would they give us? What would Washington give us? What would New England give us?
So yes, the like I said, what Jesse had just mentioned, I think it would be a 1st round swap. So we're only moving back to 1 to 2 spots if it's New England or Washington.
Right.
And it's all assuming Poles is 100% bought in, just like it seems like everyone else is, that Caleb Williams is the presumed number 1 overall pick. And here's the thing: if Caleb Williams had won a natty, and in addition to the Heisman, and like had won Pac-12 titles with USC, I'd be like, yes, let's do this. But to me, there is a certain level of pedigree that I like to take into effect when it's like, this guy's coming in to run the organization for the next 15 to 20 years. Like, it'd be nice if he'd won before.
Yeah,
Granted, all the tangible stuff that you want to see seems like seems a little short, in my opinion. That's just me. I mean, it is what it is. If someone's like, actually, I think like it's a really smart person, one of these like quarterback evaluators or draft evaluators, NFL scout, would be like, here's the reason why I think Jayden Daniels is better. Here's the reason why I think Drake May is a better prospect. I'd hear them out. I wouldn't dismiss it. So Poles is surrounded by guys like that. It's their job. They get paid millions of dollars themselves to advise these guys like, hey, guess what? This kid that seems a little volatile prior to even being drafted, I don't actually think he's the best option. And guess what? We can trade back a spot and get the guy that we actually like better and get more first-round pick. I'd be like, okay, I'll hear this out. I don't want to seem crazy. I think we're going to take Williams at 1. We still got to pick at 9.
But you got me thinking.
I just was curious what you guys thought.
You got me thinking now.
So let's say we trade back beyond that, beyond the Washington, beyond New England, and let's say we get stuck with someone like J.J. McCarthy, or we get short-sighted, all 3 quarterbacks go in the first 3 picks. You know,
I want to accept that.
Still on the board.
You're not thinking about it right though. Because there's no way we would do it and then get stuck with somebody. We're moving back to get the guy that we want. That's the idea behind it. Because we know.
But as a fan, if that guy ends up being J.J. McCarthy, like I feel like that. I'm just trying to think of worst case scenarios here, right? Like if we do trade back,
J.J. McCarthy, you just named it. That's worst case scenario.
Right?
That would be if Foles is thinking J.J. McCarthy's.
His name's been mentioned more often lately, and it's making me nervous.
You're absolutely right. After the combine, it was like, oh, actually, McCarthy might be the 3rd best quarterback, and it's like he might not be either. But in this hypothetical that I'm throwing out is under the assumption, like Jesse had said, you're not moving back unless you know that the guy you want is the guy.
Yeah.
So that's under the assumption that Washington or New England are Caleb Williams teams, basically.
No, I like this thought exercise better than my worst case Ontario. That we don't need to talk about that.
You did.
Here's the thing: is this core that we have right now? We've all just kind of talked about it. Is like he's coming into a good situation now, and like if it is Caleb Williams with a team that is not. This is not a roster anymore. This is just a joke. This is a real NFL roster with with a real quarterback coming in and the additional picks that we have and potentially adding maybe 1 or 2 more names in free agency. This could be a real team. So my thought is if you do like one of those other guys better, you can just load up on a level that has not been seen before. Like you can get 2, 3, 4 more picks inside of the top 100 this year, and then get your guy at quarterback still, and have multiple first rounds next year. And you can just keep this rolling if you don't like Caleb Williams. Which like I said, I've been saying this from the jump. I don't love the kid, but if everybody else, if the smart people that run the team are like, hey, in Caleb we trust, this is the guy, he really is the shit. Okay, I'll get behind it, but I'm always about just creating chaos. Let's get more picks. I just want more picks. About
Caleb, and now I'm like a little nervous. What kind of pressure situation?
God, I just sent Tom. Oh, he's gonna go see it like a.
I think that it's either Jayden Daniels or Caleb Williams.
Look at Patrick Mahomes' college pedigree. If we're talking about it that way,
that's a great point.
He was raw talent in college.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs identified him as their dude and developed him properly, and now he owns the league. He is Caleb's comp though, in terms of kind of athleticism and he may be a little bit small. He may be a little bit smaller, but he can make the off-platform throws. He can improvise. So let me ask you this: like leading up to the draft, who was the last quarterback that had as much hype around him as Caleb? And let's look at those guys and see how they turned out. I wouldn't even say Trevor is to the level that Caleb is at.
Do you remember?
I would agree with Tom. That is the last guy who's at this same level. I personally I thought personally when Trevor Lawrence was coming out of Clemson, I was like, this guy's the guy. Like I was convinced of it. I was like, he is like and he was talked about at the time like this as well. He was the best NFL quarterback or QB ready for the NFL since Peyton Manning. Like everybody said that. There seems to be that same sort of general sentiment about Caleb Williams in this draft as well. Some people, like, Jesse saying like would even put Caleb Williams above that. Other good examples like of quarterbacks, it's been a while, honestly. Like, so I would go Trevor Lawrence. Yeah. So Burrow's a good point too. Like, think about Burrow's senior year at LSU. It was insane, right? Like national title. His stats were insane. You got Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson on that team. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the running back. It was just Jayden Daniels' numbers were better this year than Joe Burrow's senior year. They were all better.
What?
Yeah. Statistically. Now he didn't win a national title, but
how tall is this cat?
Jayden?
Who?
How tall is Jayden Daniels? That's what I go.
What's his hand?
He's got more of the stereotypical NFL quarterback frame.
6'4", 210.
He's taller than I thought. I thought he was like a 6'1", 6'2" guy, and that makes me feel better if we do pick him.
He's 6'4".
I honestly don't. I haven't seen that much tape or watched Jayden Daniels a whole lot.
Same.
But to your question, Luke, that you asked like 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago at this point, I don't think there's any scenario where they don't take Caleb. I think they've pretty much well made up their mind at this point.
I'm on board with not taking him now.
I would not hate Jayden. I wouldn't hate Jayden Daniels. If we trade back and we get something for it, and we get Jayden Daniels.
I don't like.
Well, here's the
because he went to UNC.
I'm going to throw out another hypothetical real quick. Is we still have the 9, so we take Williams at 1. A lot of people are assuming that. So at 9, the guys that are in that ballpark, based on my draft simulations, you're looking at getting
the best in the biz.
A premier. You're looking at one of the premier pass rushers. You could go.
When's our next pick?
Dallas Turner from Alabama. Latu from UCLA are going to be there at range. Or you get what is assumed to be like the second or third best wide receiver in this draft. Because Marvin Harrison, we're assuming, is going to go top 5. But you can look at a guy like Rome Odunze at 9. You can look at a guy like Malik Neighbors from LSU. If you take Daniels at 2, Malik Neighbors at 9.
When's our second round pick? Do you guys know?
What did I say?
I don't think we have a pick.
I think it's 1-9. God, I wish I would have jotted this down before.
I feel like we have to get an edge rusher for our 9.
So that's the thing. Is what I'm saying is it is a situation where we could trade back from 9 to mid first round. And then you look at a guy like Jared Verse, 48, who would be available around there. Some people have said, I actually like him better than Dallas Turner from Alabama. A guy like Chop Robinson from Penn State would be there. So you can still get that pass rusher, move back, say, maybe 10 spots from 9 to where you're mid first round. And then you're also, by trading back there, presumably picking up some more middle round picks, which we're not missing. We traded away our 4th for Keenan Allen. So I would like to see us find a way to manufacture a few more picks in the middle rounds. and continue to build up the roster as opposed to just putting all of our eggs in that basket. But
yeah.
What do you guys think? Trading back from 9?
So it is 1,975 in the third. So that's the third round, and then 122 in the fourth round.
122
we got that from Philly. So
yeah.
How many rounds are there?
So yeah, I'd like to 7 rounds.
I think with the Gerald Everett signing, and I think Shane Waldron runs a type of offense where they like to run a lot of 2 tight end sets. I'm not sure that wide receiver 3 is going to be as big of a component of the offense as, one of these more spread type look offenses. And
really good. Just
so if that's the case, we've got DJ Moore, we've got we've got Keenan Allen, we got our running back. We're making some moves on the offensive line. We've got 2 decent tight ends. I could see a lot more, a more balanced.
A few drafts that I've done simulation wise where Bowers is still available at 9. What do you think about him, Jesse? If he's at 9,
love that.
And we've got an option between a guy who's great, like scheme fit, and he's like positionally wise, like there hasn't, apart from maybe Kyle Pitts a few years ago, and a ton of tight end prospects like this coming into the draft. Is that someone you'd be interested in pursuing, or would you still go the route of maybe an edge rusher? Or
I don't think it makes sense with what the Bears have done. They've got Cole Kmet
in terms of the
Gerald Everett. Yeah.
I mean,
to bring in Bowers, they would have to move one of those guys. They're not going to move Everett. They just brought him in. They could trade Kmet.
I don't think you necessarily have to move them. I think Everett was I'd have to put his contact details in terms of what they signed him for, but I don't remember that being multi-year.
But I mean, I don't see that happening. I just think they're still too weak.
You're thinking edge
on the defensive front. Yeah.
We got to get
unless they do something in free agency prior to.
There's no one out there.
Who's left? I mean, who is left for them to sign? I saw Chase Young today.
Yeah, he's gone. I think Jayden Clowney.
2 years, 12 mil. 2 years, 12 mil for Everett.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, I mean, I think they probably go front defensive front with that number 9 pick. But if there is a guy with such a like Brock Bowers, where it's like, man, this guy is kind of a generational type tight end, I think you definitely have to think about it.
Well, so I feel like there's also this, we're grasping for people to draft at 9. Like if somebody does have their mind made up and somebody does have a hole that they need filled, like we're saying with a wide receiver and with Shane Waldron running the 2 tight end set, and we're not going to have that wide receiver 3 be as impactful, then we could deal that, and somebody who does have a hole that they need to fill will be paying up for it, and then we can fill some of those middle round picks as well. I feel like that could be a viable option.
Yeah, that's kind of what Luke is saying. Which, yeah, I mean, if we can do that and we can move back, and like we were kind of talking about with trading the first pick away because we like a better quarterback at 2 or 3, and Jared Verse is still available middle of the second round.
You know what I'm hearing?
Trade 9 for a later first round pick and a second round pick.
The Bears are in good position here, boys. We're in win-win here.
Absolutely.
I mean,
there's still some wood to be chopped, though. Like this defensive front needs to be addressed. Montez Sweat is obviously huge. We got the 2 rookies on the interior, but
that's another bit. A guy that I saw at the combine that I just was like, this guy is like the second coming of Aaron Donald, was Byron Murphy from Texas. Dude is just a bowling ball. I mean, just frightening. And that is because he's an interior guy. You're looking at him. I mean, with his combine performance, he moved himself up into late first, early second territory. So like that's a guy as well I saw in some of the draft simulations that I had done where if you possibly trade back that 9 and move back a little bit further in the first while picking up maybe a couple middle rounds picks, that I was like, that would be sick to have him. He seems like a wrecker, like a guy who can push the quarterback from the interior of the defensive line. And then you've got someone like Montez Sweat on the outside. And then maybe we, sign some free agency late as the year gets closer.
The question is, what's more important, to continue to give Caleb Williams or whatever quarterback we draft more weapons, or to shore up defensive line? What makes more sense?
Be offensive line too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shoring up the offensive line is just as important
big boys
at
in
this
there.
point.
There's Byron Murphy, dude, Luke. Holy smokes. There's something here saying that the Raiders are targeting him, and him as a Raider is just terrifying. He's a scary dude.
With what's his face, dude?
Yeah, talk about a defensive front you don't want to go up against.
Yeah.
Hey, I really believe we're going to get that second piece to go with Montez Sweat, and that's going to be with our backfield. Our defense is going to be, legit, and that's going to keep us in a lot of games, no matter what our offense looks like, and it looks pretty okay right now. So,
I agree with what you said, Tom. We are at the first time in a long time are going into the draft with a lot of optimism, a lot of options. It's like, like when you set yourself up for success, you go into it. Well, it's like, things can go this way, and we've got contingencies in place to adjust and maneuver and pivot here. Whereas in the past, it's like, we're putting all our eggs in this basket, and if it doesn't go well, we're completely screwed. Trubisky, Fields, we are now in a position where the roster is half deep. You've got the ability to go get your guy, whoever that may be, and potentially add a lot more draft capital if you go a certain direction, or get the guy that is the guy and go that way. But I agree with you, Tom. I think we're in a good spot.
What do you guys think about a live draft pick, live draft pod?
I think if
I probably won't be able to do that because I usually watch, and this sounds funny, but it is real. Usually watch the draft from an Olive Garden bar with Mariah. We've done it 3 years in a row. So
freaking awesome. All right.
Probably going to have to continue doing that.
You just FaceTime you in.
That was really nice.
We could, yeah.
Just a little cameo.
I did want to ask you guys, were there any other moves for the Bears? I know I personally had my own thoughts and feelings on some of the other players that we brought in that I was kind of like, interesting choice there. That you guys are really excited about. I love Keenan Allen as a player. I love that we got him for a 4th rounder. I completely forgot when I named off the activity at the beginning about Jalen Johnson, but thank you, Wargo, for bringing that up. I love that. I love that we got him paid on a contract that was
for a reasonable price.
We didn't have to reset the market with it. We got him as we should have gotten him. We're not paying him more than any other cornerback in the league, but we are paying him what he deserves. Right. So love that too. The Byard signing, I was like, we just replace Eddie Jackson with Eddie Jackson from a different team. That's kind of what it felt like to me. And then DeAndre Swift, I was like, I've seen him in games going back to when he was with Detroit where he gets a wild hair up his ass, and he is really exciting to watch and he's very powerful. And then there's other games where it's like the hair is not there, and it's like, whoa, what's up with this dude? So that one I was a little bit weary of, but I like Gerald Everett. I like Keenan Allen. I like Jonathan Owens from Green Bay. He seemed kind of like a pest against us last year. I remember seeing him in games being like, who is this asshole? I don't like him. But now that he's on our team, I'm kind of like, okay, that's the kind of guy I want. Also, as I mentioned, married to Simone Biles, that's good pedigree. Sure. Gold medals. Let's go.
To be noted.
So Guys, did you like
touch on
him?
that DeAndre Swift signing? That was one of the first ones that broke, and I've got some mixed feelings about DeAndre Swift because the Lions were on Hard Knocks a few years ago. He was their premier back at that point. They did have Jamal Williams, who had a great year that year, but remember this was preseason, and dude just wasn't featured on the show. Which okay, maybe he's more reserved, he's kind of shy, whatever. That's fine. But it makes me wonder, is he not quite as good of a locker room leader as you'd like to see? Which I agree with Luke. He's shown flashes of brilliance. He's really athletic. Another thing that I saw shortly after the signing was that last year he was like 4th in the league yards before contact. Yards after contact, he was like 44th. So behind Philadelphia's offensive line, of course, which was really good last year, that makes a lot of sense. Now you got to think he's taken a step back in terms of the guys he has up front blocking for him. What is that? How is that going to translate to his game, right? And then you look at what we paid him. So 3-year, $24 million. Well, the Ravens signed Derrick Henry for 2 years on $16 million. So,
same base salary.
The only thing we have going for us, obviously, is DeAndre Swift is 25.
Right.
So he's
same contract as Pollard.
Got some more fuel in the tank. Yep.
Exactly.
Same contract as Pollard.
That'll be fun to watch.
Where did Pollard end up?
Everybody will be watching it.
Tennessee.
Oh, Pollard.
So,
Tennessee.
That was my only kind of qualms with that signing. I'm not sure how that's going to play out. I think I could see him being kind of a middle of the road back, not have a great.
He is different than the backs we currently have, and it seems like
Right.
that needed to be addressed. In my opinion, we've got guys who are downhill runners in recent years, and they're just
If I remember
they
Seattle, Waldron, I feel like they didn't have a running back, and we have 3 pretty good running backs, I would say. With Johnson.
Seattle had some pretty good running backs.
Yeah,
I mean,
Zach Charbonnet last year
they weren't like a big
the
name.
kid from
Kenneth Walker, Chris
Like
Carson.
Kenneth Walker.
I'm just saying, so they weren't like
Scary guys.
They weren't like a Saquon Barkley or a Derrick Henry. We have 3 core guys here that we can, and fit into his offense. I think it could be good. I am nervous about him, Swift. Like, I'm a little nervous.
Well,
Not gonna lie.
I think it is important to note, like we're talking about how bad our offensive line is. I mean, relative to the Eagles, yeah, it could improve certainly. But Darnell Wright is coming into year 2. I mean, we did draft him high last year. He was a serviceable offensive lineman last year. He would presumably be better this year. Hopefully we can have some guys stay healthy, which was largely an issue in the first half of the season for us last year. So, I mean, offensive line, yeah, it's not as good as the Eagles, as well as Roschon Johnson. It's going to be his second year as well. Iowa or Iowa State? Iowa? State.
Texas.
Nice. But presumably he will be
12.
improving.
Yeah.
Guy runs hard. And yeah, he is a lot.
No, he does. I agree. I like Roschon.
Yeah. If he just needs to protect the old conky. No more lowering the crown and getting smoked in the brain. That was bad. It's like 6 games that he was out for a concussion. Never a good thing.
Yeah, but yeah, that's free agency talk. I mean, I think we pretty much covered most of it. Just remember, if the Bears do not take Caleb Williams, remember where you heard it first, okay, folks? I'm just planting seeds here.
Yeah, you planted it right
of the possibilities
right there in my head. So
if we take JJ McCarthy,
if we take JJ McCarthy, I will be a Raiders fan next year. Gardner Minshew, Antonio Pierce. I mean, I'm pretty like if the Bears do me wrong one more time, you guys, if they rag on me 13 or 14 more times, I will another team. So they need to keep that in mind.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to give a shout out to all the teams right now. Illinois basketball winning the Big Ten. Cubs looking right now. Bears looking right.
Golf's fun too.
Yeah, I'm just talking about Chicago teams. Bulls,
Scotty Scheffler.
Got some issues, but
I don't know if we have any Chicago representation on the PGA Tour.
I don't know. I don't really know.
I don't know.
I love watching it.
I do have a quick one. I do appreciate the shout out, Tom. Great to see Illini beating Wisconsin there after Wisconsin prevailed over Purdue. I'm not sure. I would assume Purdue was playing their starting lineup. I didn't watch that game, but
they're trying to win the Big Ten, dude.
Well, it's a good point. Yeah, obviously. Anyway, the one thing I wanted to get to that I thought about earlier today is with obviously a rookie quarterback coming into Chicago, do we keep Tyson Bagent, secret Bagent man, as a backup, or do we get a more veteran backup to kind of?
We brought in Brett Rippon from Denver, I think, LA, can't remember, but. Let's keep Tyson in the building.
For sure.
I don't want to see him go. That little Slim Shady. It's good to have him around. He brings an absurd amount of swagger into the team. So I think we gotta try to keep him if we can.
Agreed. Good to hear. Okay, I'm glad we're on the same page there. What do you think? What does Goose say, Tom?
He's out, dude. He's gone. He doesn't have an opinion. He's a dog.
Damn. All right. Well, yeah. Glad we didn't spend too much time on that. That was one thing I just impulsively thought of at the last second. But anybody closing thoughts? Wrap it up. Jesse, Luke, Tom, Goose.
I'm just looking forward to the draft at this point. I think we're just over a month away here. So, the future is bright for Chicago. There's a lot to look forward to. I'm excited.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Also, it was good to get back into the pod, dude. Has been a while.
I'd assume we'll probably maybe do one pre-draft, definitely do one post-draft, and then just keep an eye on, keep our finger on the pulse. If anything insane happens.
Right.
Thank you all for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Chitown Lowdown. We're looking forward to this next Chicago Bears season with you. Keep tuning in for the content.
See you guys.